Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Lucilla on LTV International, our today's edition of the Voices of the Continent. Well, to shed more light on this, we are most delighted to be joined over the phone by our prominent guest, Dr. Mohamed Elsobki, Chairperson in the Egyptian World Energy Council. Dr. Elsobki, great pleasure always having you with us.
It's my pleasure and honor. Thank you.
Yes, talking about approximately 600 million persons who've been deprived of electricity, or they have no access to electricity in a very rich continent, which is very rich of mineral resources, solar and wind energies, new and renewable energy resources, gold, diamonds, all the types of resources, which we call it the continent of resources. But in spite of this, millions are suffering from poverty. Please, what's your take on this?
Well, as you clearly said, Africa is quite resourceful for a different type of energy sources, solar, wind, hydro, and so on. So far, the cost of technology have been expensive. That is falling down over the last 10-15 years. So it's making it possible to resort to production of electricity from renewable energy sources, specifically solar energy, and then wind, and of course hydro. The possibilities are for large-scale projects and small-scale projects as well. Small-scale projects like for small communities and small villages, which they don't have connection to the grid, then they can resort to the mini grids or local development of local projects. In Africa, a number of African countries have done quite positively in that direction, among which is South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and some others, maybe Nigeria and Kenya is also trying. There is also the vision of interconnecting all African countries together through a joint network going north from Egypt, south to South Africa, going through a number of African nations. That will definitely help in electrifying the continent with electricity, and hence developing all the economical targets especially regarding industrial activities. Having said that, I guess a lot of African countries and their communities are looking for type of joint venture projects, joint venture implementation among African countries, among each other. This is one, and also for international cooperation to overcome the obstacles of financing and the technology transfer. Actually, there is clearly now joint projects between African countries, between developers, for example, in Egypt, and doing their implementations in Zimbabwe and in South Africa, as well as in Morocco. So these relations are growing, especially that the technology is more affordable now than a few years ago, and also the technology is more advanced. I think the financing issue would be resolved by joint venture activities. Hopefully, hopefully these joint venture activities would grow in a progressive way through the African Union and so on.
Yeah, sir, as you mentioned, exactly the core issue is actually in the funding issue, financing the projects of the renewable energies to be as it's really potential in the African continent. As the superpowers like the United States, Russia, Japan, China, all are getting really and making great race to the African continent to use the resources of the continent. That's why we're talking always about the financing issues and funding of such investments, etc. So Africa being abused for a long time ago, and that's why we're always they're always waiting for investments, waiting for European countries to come and to invest over there, and actually they are not getting a fair deals with such superpowers. Can you just also comment on this?
Well, maybe it's time now to go into fair deals, especially that the world is facing environment limitations, and so the whole world needs to work together. Developing countries, as you mentioned, European, American, Russian countries, and so on, and even Asian countries like China, Korea, Japan, and so on, all should work together in developing these projects in the continent, and not only to utilize the technologies developed in the developing countries, but also trying to help manufacturing some of the elements or some of the components of these renewable energy resources in the African countries as new economical activities, industrial economical activities. That definitely will help the accessibility to the renewable energies and will help the sustainability of these renewable energy resources. And again, some of the countries, I would say Morocco, Algeria, South Africa, and Egypt, are supporting the industrialization to reduce some of the components locally, nationally, to help their national communities, as well as eventually to export some of their products internationally.
Yeah, again,
right. Again, on the small-sized villages and so on, mini grids are the solution, and there is ways to sort of upfront support the investment and then get the returns. I mean, based on commercial agreements and so on, payment can be delayed a little bit. That will help these communities to develop and utilize electricity and heat as well from renewable energy sources, and eventually these small communities can interconnect together, eventually building up the larger networks and eventually connecting countries to each other.
Exactly, as you mentioned, Dr. Mohamed Elsobki, the deals must be actually made in a fair way and to be made on specific principles, now to be on based on mutual benefits for both sides. Now, Dr. Mohamed Elsobki, chairperson of the Egyptian World Energy Council, many thanks for being with us and for your insights. And by this, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of our today's edition of Voices of the Continent. Many thanks for watching, and from myself, Hanan Al-Khoud.